to a very special episode of Starsmadas Shelf. This episode we are going to be looking at the 10th anniversary Star Trek Attack Wing faction pack. So this pack, at first glance, appears to have roughly double the cards of a regular faction pack. And unlike normal faction packs, this one comes with what are called display ships. They still function as regular ships on the board, but they have this beautiful, elegant paint job. Now the models are the run-of-the-mill models we've come to expect. They're a bit wonky, the NX-01 doesn't quite fit on the base right, the nacelles, pylons for the Enterprise Constitution class are, like, kind of crooked, the Galaxy class wants to tip over. The Sovereign is nearly perfect, it is angled slightly down, and the saucer section doesn't quite lay flat on the Excelsior class, as well as the Excelsior class is still stretched for some reason. Now, although these models are kind of the usual low quality we've come to expect, their paint job kind of feels weird, because the paint job looks great, but the models don't. I'm still probably going to put them in a display case, though. Now, this pack comes with a lot of new cards, and as well as reprints of old cards and erratas and replacements. So here are some example new cards we have. This is the Mark 6 torpedo. And with the old torpedoes that we used to have, like the really, really old ones, the like 4 dice, 5 dice, target lock, spend your target lock, disable, convert one battle station to a critical. I used to defend those cards by saying, if you had a 3 attack dice ship or a 2 attack dice ship, or for some reason you're flying a 1 attack dice ship, you can put those older photon torpedoes on just to boost the ship's attack total. This appears to be WizKid's solution to that, which kind of makes my old recommendation a little obsolete. However, once again, if you are only playing with those older cards, then you can still draw from that pile. So if you don't have this card, you can still use those older torpedoes to get the extra oomph of power. But this lets you get that extra power, lets you get a little bit of quality here. It converts a battle station or evade into a blank. Also, if you do hit the target, you can re-target lock them. Now that's really cool. Now there is a drawback in that it doesn't have a rear firing arc, but this is sort of aimed at... Actually, no, there's no real good excuse for that, I guess, except they wanted to keep it 2 points and didn't want it to be too OP, so, eh. Then we have Dominion War Retrofit. Now this card is very popular, and I really like it. Basically, it increases your shields, gives you an extra slot, either tech, weapon, or crew, and then, depending on what class of ship you're flying, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be a Federation ship, you get extra bonuses. There's also a slew of new crew cards. Lots of them lower decks and just characters who were just one-offs who appeared in like one episode or one movie and then were never seen again. Here's an example. We've got Pardrag Daniels. He lets your ship target lock 2 ships instead of 1. He's only 3 points. We've also got Tactical Data Link, which is a weapon or a tech. Well, it fills the slot. It doesn't count as a weapon or tech. It's still a question mark upgrade. It's for Sovereign class ships. It lets other ships use your target lock. So it pairs with Daniels very well. And then we have Federation Prototype. Now, Federation Prototype is not technically a new card. It was used in the last Federation faction pack that came out, Ships of the Line, but it's still a fairly new card. And it gives you an extra tech, weapon, or crew, as well as increasing your ship's defense ever so slightly. Now, out of the older cards that have been reintroduced, we've got things like Type 8 Phaser Array. I remember one of the most early, one of the first ships I got that was really expensive was the Hood. It was a prize ship. I had to buy it. Oh, and it had Type 8 Phaser Array, a card everyone at the time recommended. In fact, this card is partly responsible for why I run the channel the way I do. When I first started playing the game, there were all these other YouTube channels, and they were like, oh yeah, if you're building a ship, always put Type 8 phasers array on it. And I was like, what? I don't have that card, I'm a new player. That's from an old event. I can't find that. So I decided to make a bunch of videos that had recommendations for new players. Well, guess what? Now new players can find it. It's really simple. It gives you a +1 attack roll. Well, attack die. We got Systems Upgrade. This was another card that came with the Hood and the Lakota. Much sought after. Again, a card I really wanted. And now that we've got things like Prototype and Dominion War Retrofit, it's not as necessary. But it's cool that they still released it. That you get 2 of these in this pack. So this card may fill a weapon or a tech slot. And you add a tech slot to your ship's upgrade bar. And you increase your shields by 1. Now this is slightly worse than the older version, because the older version could be used in a crew slot as well. Now we've also got a whole bunch of crew that's been updated as well. This is just an example. This is Lojar, originally in the Excelsior expansion. You may disable this card instead of a weapon upgrade when you are attacking. Hoa! Look, it's the Enterprise NX-01. I love this ship. This is one of the reasons I bought this pack. So this version of the NX-01 has been updated. You no longer get an enhanced hull plating for free, but you do get the Federation prototype upgrade as well as the enhanced hull plating if you equip them. The old NX-01 had a problem with trailing aux, and it was more expensive. Now it is cheaper, and what you do get is you get to perform your crew and captain actions, if they're a Federation, while you have auxiliary power tokens. This ship, by the way, is highly customizable. I managed to get about 14-ish cards onto this ship, and like it's just amazing all the stuff you can put on this little guy here. And of course, a staple in my original fleets was Pavel Chekhov. I really liked him because you could remove auxiliary power tokens on white maneuvers, which was useful on the Excelsior and other Federation ships. However, in addition to that, if you are flying him on a Miranda class, you can place a scan token beside your ship. So you can see how this new pack is not only just new cards, it wants you to use it with older cards as well, like the old Reliant. We've also got this new line, a tagline called First Officer. It's on a lot of cards in this pack. It lets you use these cards after your captain's been discarded to swap it to a captain version. But frankly, this version of Chekhov as a captain is one that I would have loved when I first started playing, because you can repair your ship with this, you can get free evades, you do have to place auxiliary power tokens as a downside, but again, like, you've got the ability to remove it, and then when you need him to be captain, you can now turn around and repair your ship. Like, these are like cards I wish I had when I started playing. It's so cool to see these get updated. Now, if you are a new player to the game and you pick up this set, yes, there are a lot of complicated cards in it, but there are plenty of simple cards to get you started. And nothing is a better example than this than the original OG Enterprise D. This was from the first starter set. Now, this has been what is called errata and replace, a new thing to the game. We used to have erratas in the game. Now we've got errata replaces. So if you have that old Enterprise, it was weapon, weapon, crew, crew, crew. Now it is tech, weapon, crew, 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 and it is 26 points. This is the first time we've seen unique ships get cost reductions, but at that same time, you can't use the first weapon slot on the old one. You have to pretend it is now a tech slot. Now, the reason this is such a good starter ship is because you can fire a primary weapon 360 at range 1 to 2. And you have to fire it with -1 attack dice, so you'd be firing at like 3 dice instead of 4. This is great because it means you don't need to worry about lining up your shots. And with a ship that's kind of clunky like a Galaxy class, that's really important. We also have the USS Atlas. This is an excellent support capital ship because it can give away its tokens. And frankly, I think it might be my new main ship. So we also have James T. Kirk. Gotta love playing Kirk. He lets you every other turn change your ship's move. Now this is really important if you're just starting the game, or if you're dyslexic like I am, because you will choose the wrong direction and you will screw up your flight pattern. You might end up losing a game because of it. So the ability to go, oh shoot, I made a mistake, and fix it would be perfect. Or like you realize your ships activate in a different order and you're going to collide. You can go, oh nope, not going to collide anymore. Great ship for new players. We also have micro power relays. I'd mentioned it before when I started playing this game. I really wanted a lot of repair cards. This is a great simple repair card. You can use an action to repair a non-critical card, and you can use another action to cancel all your criticals and turn them into damages. And here we have an example of one of the crew in this game which have just a really simple, easy to understand ability. At the start of the planning phase, you disable the card and you place a scan token beside your ship. Can't get more simple than that. However, he is also a lower decks. That's a new rule. With lower decks, you can actually put 2 crew in one slot as long as both crew have lower decks written on them. Okay, now, once you are comfortable using the more simpler cards, you can move up to the more complicated ones. And there are a lot of great cards in this set. So here is an example of a slightly more complex card. This one's only a little more complicated. What happens is, at the start of combat phase, so it's not on your turn, it's not when you attack, it's when you enter the combat phase before anyone attacks. You can place 2 time tokens on him, and then spend a scan token from beside your ship. This then lets you repair a shield on the ship. If it is equipped to a Federation ship, you can repair 2 shields. I'm personally probably going to run this on the Year of Hell Voyages, so you can start repairing very quickly. This is the USS Enterprise. Its ability is still fairly simplistic, but the fact that there's so much text on this card and it's very small can make it harder to read, and in the middle of a big game with lots of upgrades on your ships and all this stuff, it can be easy to forget about the abilities you have. So this is not the right card at all. This is actually the USS Enterprise A. I'm talking about the USS Enterprise. Here we go. So yeah. It's easy to forget what the abilities of your cards are mid-game. So having less text on the cards makes them easier to use. So this ability essentially lets your ship do 3 different things. But they are pretty cool. And it's easier to think about if you look at it like you're transferring power from your engines into your tactical systems. Because you can get a free scan if you travel at a fast speed. If you travel at a more slower speed, you can get a +1 attack dice. If you travel at a very slow speed, you can get +2 attack dice. Now this is very thematic to me. I love it. I'm probably going to be flying this. It might be my new favorite Enterprise. Now we've got the Enterprise A. This ship here has a good combat ability for increasing the attack and fighting cloaked ships, but its power to swap out the elite talent makes it possibly the most customizable ship in the game, allowing players to access a large number of cards from their collection during the game. I think that, I don't know whether this is going to be highly competitive, but I think with the right player and the right selection of elite talents, this could possibly be one of the most competitive ships in the game. It Won't Be Installed Till Tuesday is a funny thematic card that discounts other upgrades on your ship, allowing you to bring more cards into your builds. But more cards means more stuff to keep track of, and discounts can get a bit tricky and you can lose track of your point total. However, discount cards like this can make it or break it in a competitive game. Just keep an eye on those restrictions, because if you boost your captain skill too high, you're not going to be able to use this card. So here we have Montgomery Scott, a reprint from the Ships of the Line pack. Now he is a good example of a lot of the more complicated crew in this game, because he's got a lot of text, and I've seen other people get confused about how his ability works. In fact, while this is the 3rd take of me reading it, because I keep fumbling around with it. Basically, when you need to put an auxiliary power token beside your ship, you can put it on him instead, And then as an action, you can place 2 time tokens and target a ship that has a construction upgrade. It can be any construction upgrade. If it's a friendly ship, they get to perform a free 2 straight. If it's an opposing ship, you can place all your auxiliary power tokens from him onto that ship. This is very funny. To me, it reminds me of the scene where the Enterprise is trying to escape the Excelsior. Now, I just want to shout out 2 additional cards in this pack that caught my eye. The first is the Enterprise B with a deceptively simple ability. Whenever you perform the action of a Federation crew upgrade equipped to this ship, place 1 less time token on that upgrade. If you pair this with Ezri Dax, you can reduce the total amount of time tokens on your crew upgrades, at least Federation ones with actions, by 2. The maximum amount of time tokens you usually see on crew upgrades is 3. Meaning that on the Enterprise B with Ezri Dax, you can use those cards every single turn. Ezri Dax is already a highly competitive card. Ezri Dax on the Enterprise B is a combo I am certain I'll see in competitive fleets. We've also got Tea, Earl Grey, hot. Now, the main reason I think that this is a really good upgrade is because it's 1 point, and it seems to be better than pretty much every other drink upgrade in the game. Which kind of upset me at first, but I'm not a playtester. I don't know what the decision making was, but I did hear that it apparently wasn't good enough. So there's a reason it's as good as it is. I don't know what it is, but there's a reason. Whenever you place a battle station token beside your ship, place 1 time token on this card, so you can use it every turn. You may place a scan token and an evade token beside the ship instead, and then remove 1 time token from another card equipped to this ship. So actually, if you use that card with the Enterprise B, you don't necessarily need Ezri, if there's only 1 card in particular you need for your special combo. Now, before I get on to final thoughts, I want to point out a couple new rules here. We do have a new purpose for scan tokens. Scan tokens in the game now, you can spend them to convert an opposing ship's battle station into a blank. It gives you a bit more defense. We've also got 2 new action bar actions. And there's a couple cards that can add them. The first one is Tractor Beam. It lets you perform sort of a miniature sensor echo on a friendly or enemy ship. And yes, you can push them off the game board if you want. In order to get this, you're going to need the Enhanced Tractor Emitters card. It lets you gain that action bar action, and then it gives you a bonus whenever you use it. We've also got the Transporter Room. That's a new Transporter Room action. Lets you transfer and redeploy crew upgrades from ships. We've also got Miles O'Brien, who works with the transport action. In this case, if it is as a free action, you may disable the card to perform the transport action. Or, if it is the night shift, you may place 2 time tokens. Now, I haven't talked about night shift yet. If you don't have the initiative token, it is considered to be the night shift. And that unlocks new abilities on other cards that have night shift as a keyword. Hello! We are going to be discussing the pros and cons now. Let's get the pros out of the way before I have to sink my teeth into the cons. The cons! Alright, so the NX-01 is now a very customizable ship when you're using it in casual games. You've got lots more cards to use, and some of the upgrades have given it more of a fighting chance. Still don't really think it's a competitive ship. However, there happens to be a user that is in Firmount who does know how to make this ship attack a lot. It's kind of crazy. And speaking of competitive playing, you've got Earl Grey Tea Hot. You've also got the Enterprise A and B. Those are sure to be competitive ships. Other pros include all these wonderful old cards getting updated and made better.
This is largely a standalone set. Like, you can use this to start building your collection if you pick up a starter set and then this. Yes, you will have gold models, but you can probably find replacement models for all of these online, whether it's 3D prints, used chips, or even the, I think they're called deep cut models. They're just blank white models you can buy. And although it is a standalone pack, minus the NX02 if you're building it thematically, but I'll get to that in a bit, because that's going into con territory. This pack is also made to work with the older cards from older collections. So you can pair them with these other ships and older expansions and still get great use out of it. I like that they aren't completely abandoning the old game. That like is really important to me, that you can still play with the older sets. And frankly, I love the side characters. Like, I love that this game is showing so much love for these, like, one-off characters who appear in an episode, because in the past, there sometimes were, like, full, like, main characters we never got, like Neelix. Our first Neelix just came out a little while ago, and now we're getting, like, all these, like, side characters being brought in. It's fantastic! And also, I'll say this, double-sided cards are good for the environment. I didn't like the double-sided cards at first. They ticked me off. I didn't like them. But they're good for the environment. And also, one problem I have in my deck box is, like, you know, I've got, 3 copies of the unique Negvar from, Regent's flagship from the Mirror Universe. And it's like, well, I only really need one unique and then a bunch of generics. Well, now, because the generics and the uniques are on the same card, that problem is solved. So those are all fantastic pros for this set. Now to move on to the cons. Let's start with the Columbia NX02. So its named ability lets you remove an auxiliary power token when you use enhanced hull plating, which means you'll want to run it with enhanced hull plating. The other half of the named ability lets you attack with photonic torpedoes at +1 attack dice, firing from either your front or rear arcs, and then you have to discard the card. If it was only that last ability, this would feel like a retro card, because that would be a bad ability. Especially because this set only comes with 1 copy of photonic torpedoes. So if you really want to run the Columbia, you'll want 2 copies of photonic torpedoes, but I can't recommend buying 2 of this set, because there's just so many uniques, you're going to end up with all these extra uniques. I'd much prefer it if you actually bought this set and the old NX01. But the old NX01 is really hard to find. Would it have been that much harder for them to include 2 copies of photonic torpedoes? Also on that note, alright, here we have Erica. She can only be put onto a Federation NX class ship. She can't be put onto a Mirror Universe NX class ship. So there are 3 ships in this entire game she can go on. The original Enterprise NX, the new Enterprise NX, and the USS Columbia. Her named ability gives you a +1 crew. She also has a skill of 5, an elite talent slot, and she's only 3 points. That's fair. Friendly Federation NX ships within range may use the effect of a Federation crew upgrade equipped to the ship as though they are equipped to their ship instead. If you do so, place 1 additional time token on this upgrade. We've kind of seen cards like this before with the Borg Queen and some Borg cards, but they usually let you use other ships' upgrades. This one lets you share your upgrades with other people. The thing is, though, she has to be on a Federation NX ship, and she can only share it with other Federation NX ships. Meaning, if you are to use her, you need another Federation NX ship in your fleet. You need to buy 2 copies of this big, huge, expensive expansion. I don't like that. The only other option is to track down the original NX01, which is, again, very rare. And we know we're probably not going to get another Federation NX from WizKids, because it took them this long to produce this kit, And they produced the only 2 that ever appeared in the series in this kit. And they just released this kit. This is the one card that I know of in the set that basically says you need to own 2 of this. And that to me is kind of dirty. See, if you owned... This is the photonic torpedoes, by the way. They're a nice update over the old one, because they actually give you quality this time. And you don't actually need to spend your target lock token. So that's great. It's a great improvement. But because of that, you're going to actually want to keep this card on the Columbia. You're not going to want to discard this card from the Columbia. But to use the Columbia's named ability, you're going to want to discard it. So again, you're going to need 2 of this set or the old NX-01 set. So that's quite a really big ding, in my opinion, to this set. Like, it's losing at least a full point for that alone. Now, on to my next con here. Many of the cards are needlessly cluttered with extra text that makes them harder to read. This may cause confusion among some players. There are older cards that I would personally recommend, like Spock. I would be happy to hand that off to a newer player, but the new version of Spock just has a lot of text on him, and I don't think a newer player would want to deal with that. Just kind of feels like a cluttered mess. A bit noisy. There's also a problem with the erratas, and I think I'm going to go through that now, because erratas, the point of an errata is to make things clearer and more understandable. But the new erratas cause a couple problems. Here's an example, right? So, this is a clear, easy to understand card. If your ship has a scan token beside it, when you attack, you may convert all of your battle station results into hit results. This is a great, simple card. New players can understand it nice. This is his, and I quote, errata and replace. When attacking, if there is a scan token beside your ship, convert each battle station into a hit. If equipped to a Federation, a Constitution refit, this attack cannot be cancelled. There is something unclear about these 2 cards. A commonly asked question in this game is... in fact, it's commonly asked, but it's also not commonly asked because people don't know to ask it. Can you use him on every attack? If your ship can make multiple attacks, can you use him on every attack? No, you can't. Did they write that on the new updated version? No, they didn't. Did they mention that if you already use that scan token on another ability, you can't use it on him? No, they didn't. So they added all this extra text, but they didn't answer the 2 most important questions about Spock. Instead, they used half of the card to talk about how he's a first officer. That could have been its own rules card. Just have the first officer keyword, and then list, if the captain of the ship is discarded, you may flip him over. So this is the old Captain Spock. You may perform a target lock or a scan as a free action each round. He's a skill of 6, he's got an elite talent, and he's 4 points. Again, he's simple to understand. I can give him to new players, or just players who don't like complicated cards, because there are players out there who just do not like complicated builds. They like things to be really simple. This is the new version. Planning phase. Once per game, you may cancel active negotiations in play. The controlling players may activate the negotiations effect targeting a different ship. Free action. Perform either the scan action or the target lock action as a free action. He's more expensive now. He's dual faction now. And he's skill 7. Here's the thing. Because it is a errata replace, you have to act like this card has all this text on it. But here's the thing, right? Now, this means if you if you own the new Spock, you have to say, when you're building your ship, you have to remember, oh shoot, because if you own the old Spock without the new Spock, you have to remember, oh, my old Spock now costs 5 points and is skill 7. You have to keep all that in your head. You also have to remember all that extra text about the ambassadors, even though it's not on your card. You do not have the option of using this card on its own if you're following the game by the proper rules. You have to pretend it has all this additional text and the extra cost. Same with old Spock. You have to pretend old Spock has the text of new Spock. This means, with your old Spock, if your captain's discarded, you have to, well, you can flip him over for the captain's side. But there's a big problem with that, because although the new one, you know, you have it on your ship, your captain's discarded, you flip him to the captain's side, you're all good. The old Spock is actually 2 separate cards that came in 2 separate expansions, which means if you only own old Spock and your captain's discarded, according to the new rules, you can flip him over to a blank card with no text on it, and then you have to try and remember all of the text from this card. Because you might not own this card. And I actually asked about this. That appears right now, that's how the rules work. And erratas are supposed to make things more clear, but it feels like they're making things more confusing. And an example of this again, you've got the new Enterprise E. I won't go into depth about how it works, but this ship has 2 abilities, and you actually flip the card as the game is playing. If this is the new Enterprise E, that means if you own the old one, it has all the same text on it, and that means mid-game you can flip this card over to a blank side and play with a completely blank ship. This doesn't feel like an improvement. Prior to the erratas, we had a choice where if a new card came out, like prior to the errata replace, when they made new cards, most of the time it meant you just had a new card you could choose. So you could choose to run this version, or you could choose to run the more cheaper, fancier, slimmed down version. You weren't forced to, like, do this with your cards. Here's the thing. If you don't buy this set, you still gotta deal with this. This has changed it for everyone. Okay, I want to talk about enhanced hull plating. This one is not as potentially bad as the other ones. With enhanced hull plating, I won't go through the whole ability, but basically you put 1 to 2 oxes beside your ship, and you get 1 to 2 evades while you're defending. It's pretty simple. So it was 4 points. Federation could only be put on a Federation ship, and was a tech upgrade. It was also had a block of text here that explained that it was basically ship unique. So the new one just has the ship unique symbol. It is now a construction upgrade, so it doesn't need a tech slot, and it's cheaper. This one's price has gone down. It now has all this text. It's now a construction upgrade. That's super cool. However, it's got a new restriction, which is Federation NX only. That doesn't feel too bad. Technically, this card has now been nerfed. But there is a problem, because as far as I can tell, this also applies to the Mirror Universe version of the card, which was pretty much identical. I don't mind that it's now 3 points. I don't mind that it's a construction upgrade. I do have a problem with this card being Federation NX only, because this card was made for the ISS Avenger, which is a Mirror Universe NX class. So this card that comes with the Mirror Universe NX class can no longer be used with a Mirror Universe NX class. You can put this, however, if you want, on your Federation NX class ships. However, both packs that come with Federation NX class ships already come with these cards. Now, there doesn't appear to be an official ruling on this, so my advice to you is to just ignore the errata for this card. And say to yourself that the errata only applies to the Federation version. Because I hope that is the case. Now the last two, we're trying to come back around from all this negativity back to something positive. The last two are minor nerfs. We've got the old Phlox. In my opinion, Phlox was one of the best crew in the game, but ironically, he doesn't see much use. During the activation phase, so that means at the start of the activation phase now, you may disable this card to remove all disabled tokens from all your other crew upgrades. 2 points. The new one, free action, disable this card, remove all disabled tokens from each of your other crew upgrades equipped to this ship. 2 points. So, now, the original Phlox predates, predates the ruling that during the activation phase means at the start of the activation phase. So originally you could use him anytime you needed him. And then a rule came out that said, no, you can only use him at the start of the activation phase. This new version says, actually no, because it's a free action, you do it on your turn. So that does seem like they're fixing it. But however, because it's a free action, the old Phlox you could use when you had an auxiliary power token beside your ship. Very useful on an NX class ship. The new one you cannot use if you have an auxiliary power token beside your ship. Except, there is something good. Except you can use him on the NX-01 Enterprise, because you can use Federation crew actions. So there is a silver lining. We got William T. Riker. This is one of my favorite cards in the game. Add a crew slot to your upgrade bar, and basically he then lets you perform the action of a elite talent, crew, or tech upgrade, or even your captain's action as a free action if you disable him. This is very useful in many builds. The new version of him is almost identical. Again, harder to read because they've added that first officer bit. The difference here is you can't use a tech upgrade anymore, which is disappointing because there's lots of ways to get free actions for your crew, but there's only a handful of ways to get free actions for your tech. And we have lost that if this is an errata. They didn't technically say he's an errata, but my guess is he is. However, I will say this, just to end on a positive note, I do like his captain ability. It's one of the more complicated ones. You place 3 time tokens on this card. You place a night shift token on up to 2 of your upgrades equipped to your ship. I think this is more complicated if you're like a new player or don't use complicated rules. I do want to say something. I love complicated rules. To me, it's like a whole nother aspect to this game. My favorite part of this game is actually deck building. So complicated rules are something I like. It's just, as somebody who's reviewing a product, I do have to point these things out. A continuous effect. Upgrades with the night shift token gain the following ability. Night shift. Spend a night shift token on this card and perform your action as a free action. See? There's lots of ways to get free crew actions. He looks like he could be very fun. And speaking of very fun, I think this expansion is very fun. On to my final thoughts. New players should buy this set. Now, it is expensive, so please, especially with how the economy is currently doing with everything going up, 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 please do practice discretionary buying. But if you do have that disposable income and you are starting this game and you don't know if you're going to be able to go back and buy all those old sets, pick this up. And then pick up those painting deep cut models. Or you know what? You can just paint over the gold. Sacrilege, I know. But it's something you can do. It's your product. You can do what you want with it. You've bought it. If you're an older player, you don't need this set. Use discretion. Only buy it if you want to. However, with the rate that power creep is going in the game, the cards in this set might become obsolete in like a year. So take that into account. Like, there are sets that I thought I absolutely needed, and then they were made obsolete pretty quickly, so, you know. A few other things to note, and these are just messages to my audience. If you find the new erratas and rules confusing or bad or frustrating, you are free to play with the old rules at home. There is no shame in it. People have been doing that with D&D since before I was born. And I would much rather you have a fun, weird, made-up set of rules at your home table than you get upset and disappointed with a game that you love. Next, please don't get mad at the people who work at WizKids. I know some of these changes can be hard, and I've certainly gotten upset at some times, and I've seen some other people blow their lids in frustration. But that is no reason to get upset with these people. They, like, if you want to get upset at a faceless company, go ahead, but don't go after the faces in the company. They're just people. This is just a game. They're just doing their job. They're trying to make a good product. When they make a rule change, they've got to hope that it works. And that's what playtesters are for. Like, the future of the game is on the shoulders of playtesters and the people making these cards. Please don't get too angry at them. They're just people doing their jobs. And I gotta say, this pack is an absolute love letter to the franchise and a love letter to the game. It respects the old cards. Yes, I brought up some examples where it's a bit wonky and weird, but honestly, a couple announcements from WizKids saying, hey, wait, sorry, they don't work that way. Or even just you at home saying, I'm going to ignore, the new Spock and choose to use the old one. Go ahead, do that. I honestly don't see WizKids having an official play event anytime soon. Maybe they're still doing tournaments or worlds. I don't really know. I've heard some talk about it, but you can just ignore the parts that frustrate you. That's the beautiful thing about life, isn't it? For many things, you can just ignore it and keep living. Not everyone has that option. Not everyone can ignore their problems. With plastic ships, we can ignore them if they annoy us. And guess what? You don't have to buy this set. It's not mandatory. You don't need to buy it. I think it would be fun if you did, but you don't need to. I give this pack 7 golden ships out of 10. If the ships were nicer sculpts, and if instead of errata and replace, these were just simply new upgrades you could choose to use in place of the old ones, I think I would give it a 9. To get a perfect 10, I'd like more playable models. Maybe it comes with gold ships and silver ships. Or, here's an idea. Golden bases that are actually like display bases that have the names of the ship on it. Here, actually, I have an example of what I'm talking about. This was made by Paul Mark, a really great guy. He made most of the Custom Alliance campaign you can find out there, like the different ones. So this is a 3D printed bronze Romulan. Represents my unusual build I used in a Romulan Rising campaign he made. But see, one way to make display ships that also are playable is if they weren't gold ships, they were silver, but they had these bases that said USS, NX-01 or Enterprise A, Enterprise D, and all that. Like, that would have been a nifty little trick. If they managed to do that, and those other things I suggested, then I think this would be a 10 out of 10. But nothing is perfect, so I would go 7 out of 10, which I think is perfectly respectable. Well, thank you all for watching. Hopefully this video actually works, because the old version certainly didn't. Yeah, I spent a week working on a previous version of this video, and oh boy, lots of rendering issues there. Thank you very much for watching. I'm going to keep trying to make new videos. I'm going to probably make shorter ones. I might actually go through each card in this pack as an individual video where I talk about potential combos. I'll probably put that into the Play Your Cards Right series. But otherwise, thank you for watching. And if you do want to know about every single thing in this pack, please watch Jerry's video. He has an excellent video. Well, he's got actually several. So you'll want to find the most up-to-date one on the pack. I'll try to put a link in the description below. We gotta all work together. Have a wonderful day.